Chapter 1101. She hadn't even reached the ward yet, but Olivia was already surrounded by a group of old men. They were the pillars of the medical field. Which school did you graduate from, young lady? Who was your mentor? That operation last night was superb. All of them were talking at once. It was very chaotic. They also had a gleam of joy and excitement in their eyes. Joel said with pride, "I told you she could do it." "What did all of you say?" "Joel, there's no need to bring up the past. You made the right call. I was scared to death last night. Lionel would be finished if Mr. Heath died on the operating table." "Young lady, you have great mental fortitude. You managed to keep your cool in such a stressful situation." Everyone was praising Olivia, but Rufus didn't say anything. He didn't care about all those things. He just wanted to know if Vanessa was actually Olivia. That was why he was hesitant to speak when he looked at her. Then, Olivia said, "My teacher once told me that the operating table is like a battlefield. Saving a life was like taking a life. You had to keep your hands steady." As soon as she said that, Rufus turned to look at her. Their eyes met, and they saw the understanding in each other's eyes. That was something Rufus told Olivia before her first operation. Olivia was revealing her identity with that phrase. "You still remember that?" Rufus asked, looking straight at her. Olivia said seriously, "I would never dare forget the words of my teacher. He is one of the most important role models in my life. I'm very grateful to him. But I did something that disappointed him a lot. I think he must have been devastated. I'm sure he would be very proud of the woman you have become," Rufus said excitedly. The young prodigy that he thought had gone down the wrong path was back on track. Everyone else hadn't caught up yet. "Your teacher must be so happy to have a student like you. I wonder who he is. Do we know him?" Olivia smiled but didn't reply. They would know who she was if she kept talking. "All right, let's not waste any more of her time. Mr. Heath is still waiting for her." Joel waved at Olivia and said, "Let's go. I'll take you to him. You've accomplished something incredible this time. You might even receive a Medal of Honor. Are you interested in joining our ranks since you're such a skilled doctor?" Olivia was taken aback. "Are you saying I should become a government employee?" She was offered a governmental position out of nowhere. They arrived at the door as they finished talking. They were disinfected before Joel led her into the room. Ethan and Yale stood further away in the room while Crystal and Tatiana were by Mason's side. Linus still wore a stern expression. He was like Ethan of the past. No one could tell what he was thinking. "Father, Vanessa is here. She was the one that turned the tides and saved your life." Mason's gaze shifted toward Olivia. He was completely different compared to when he was unconscious and when he was on the news. He always had a smile on his face and looked kind when he was on the news. He was completely different in person. He was still weakened, but his gaze was sharp. It was like he could peer into her soul. He was indeed a man of authority. His presence was so commanding that it made Olivia's skin crawl. Olivia stood at the side and greeted him politely. "Mr. Heath." Mason beckoned to her and dispelled his intimidating demeanor. He said with a smile, "No need to stand at attention. The younger generation shows great promise. I didn't expect a young lady to be the one to save me. Come, let me take a closer look at you." Chapter 1102. Olivia walked closer to Mason, who had a bright smile on his face. "I've heard about everything that happened last night. You're young, but you have such incredible courage. You're a rare talent, indeed. I won't be able to recover too soon, but I heard Joel say you're adept in herbal medicine. Would you be willing to stay as my chief physician and take care of me?" It was as Joel had said. Capable people are always going to be recruited by the government. Anyone else would be overjoyed by this offer. Olivia wasn't interested in the slightest. She had her own path to walk. Before she could even respond, Crystal spoke up urgently. "Dad, you don't even know her background. How could you allow her to take care of you?" Mason said kindly, "Crystal, if she really wanted to harm me, would she have tried so hard to save me last night? I've talked it through with Joel. Vanessa is the best person for the role. She is adept in both modern and herbal medicine. I'm sorry, Mr. Heath. I don't think I'm skilled enough for the job." You should pick someone else for it. Tatiana anxiously grabbed Olivia's hand. Who else would be more skilled than you? You've already proved your ability. We'll try our best to satisfy any demands you might have. I'm just a doctor from a tiny village. I won't be able to live up to your expectations. Besides, I'm used to a life of freedom, and I won't be able to get used to a life where I'm stuck somewhere on a daily basis. But I can stick around for a few days until your condition is stabilized. How dare you? Who do you think you are? How dare you turn my father down? Crystal didn't like Olivia much to begin with. Olivia's rejection made her feel like she was too arrogant. The chance to work for Mason was an honor. She should accept with gratitude. Crystal, Linus yelled. Crystal saw that Linus was angry and was reminded of how he had been last night. So, she didn't dare to say another word. Olivia nodded at Mason. I heard that you just underwent a medical examination. I'll go take a look at the results. I'll leave you with your family. Olivia exited the room after that. Linus spaced out while he watched her leave. Before she could walk away, Linus called out, "Please wait." Olivia stopped in her tracks. Truthfully, she didn't like to be near Linus. He had a bloodlust to him because he was on the battlefield most of the time. Is there anything else, Mr. Heath? You should give my father's offer some consideration before turning him down. If it were in ancient times, Olivia would be marked for death if she turned down an offer from someone of Mr. Heath's status. It was basically a blessing to receive such an offer. But it wasn't the ancient times anymore. Olivia didn't have to be afraid of any repercussions. These are turbulent times. My father needs talented people like you by his side. If you have any reservations, you can bring them up. Olivia frowned. If I insist on rejecting the offer, will you forcibly keep me around? If I wanted to, I could do that. But I wish you would stay willingly. With your skills, you're a very precious talent for the country. Olivia sneered. If I had known this is what you would do, I would never have come. Please don't misunderstand, Miss Vanessa. I sincerely hope you can stay. If you agree to stay, you'll get money, status, and anything else you might want. If you are unwilling, I won't force you either. After all, our family is indebted to you. That will never change. We are not a family of ingrates. Chapter 1103. Olivia still didn't accept the offer. Let me think about it. She was sure that Jack was the one that tried to kill Mason. But he didn't deal the killing blow. Instead, he asked her to save Mason. Jack once said that he had a sworn enemy. Was it someone from the Heath family? If that were the case, Olivia would stand firmly on Jack's side. Everything else could wait until she got to the bottom of that. Linus' gaze softened when Olivia relented. No matter what your decision may be, you still saved my father's life. If there's something you want, other than someone's life, I can give it to you. What a generous promise. Anything except someone's life. But people in his position would be able to get anything they wanted quite easily. Olivia didn't provide an answer immediately. I don't need anything. Can I hold on to this promise for now? I'll tell you if I ever need to cash in on that promise. Linus nodded. Okay, this promise will always be effective. Then, he handed Olivia his card. Call me if you need anything. Also, please don't take my sister's words to heart. She has been spoiled by us since she was a child. Olivia stared at him in silence. Linus was confused. What's wrong? Olivia shook her head. It's nothing. I'm just envious of Miss Heath. If she also had a brother, would that mean she would have someone who would always be on her side? I'll keep the promise in mind. I'll take a look at the examination reports. Excuse me. Olivia turned and left. Where was her family? Did she have any siblings? The crisis finally passed. Although no one spread the word about Lionel's failure at the operating table, he would never get the chance to go near another operation ever again. Yale was uneasy. He feared that he would be affected by Lionel's failure. Ethan gained the trust of the Heath family because he was the one who brought Olivia. There was one thing that Ethan had on his mind. He quietly left while Olivia was still in the hospital. Brent led some men into a yard. Colin was caught completely off guard. Jack was too heavily injured to even move. Before Colin could draw his weapon, Ethan said, Don't move. I won't hurt either of you. Olivia had just operated on Jack to save his life. If his stitches were torn, Olivia would surely hold them against Ethan. Ethan only managed to get a quick glance at Jack's face a few years ago. He finally got a good look at him. He looked exactly like Kurt. Jack was heavily injured and couldn't even sit up. He could only lay in bed as he looked at Ethan with hatred in his eyes. As things were, he didn't need to hide it anymore. Jack said coldly, "So what if I am? I'm sorry about what happened to your brother back then." Jack cut him off. "Will your apology bring my brother back to life?" Brent suddenly spoke up. "You should know that it was your brother's duty. His life belonged to Mr. Miller." Jack looked up and sneered. Then he sighed. "Yeah, he deserves to live, while my brother deserved to die. Your brother did it willingly." Ethan raised his hand to stop Brent from talking. He looked at Jack and asked, "I have no excuses. I owe your brother my life. You're his only brother. Let me know if there's anything you want." Jack dropped the gentle demeanor he had when he was with Olivia. He glared at Ethan and said vengefully, "What if I say I want your life?" Chapter 1104. Ethan replied directly, "I'm sorry, but I can't do that. My life doesn't just belong to me. Jack, I know you hate me and blame me for what happened. But, no matter what you do, Kurt will never come back to life. So why are you pretending to be the good guy? Kill me if you want to. I can't get away anyway." Ethan shook his head. "You're his brother. I won't hurt you." Jack sneered. "Pretentious. Jack, we're cousins. We're a family. I only have one brother in my family." Jack closed his eyes after he said that. Ethan knew he would react this way, so he didn't mind. "It's not safe for you here. I'll bring you somewhere else. Don't touch me. You were the one who tried to kill Mr. Heath. Do you think the Heath family would let you off the hook? They will hunt you to the ends of the earth, and so will the Kingstons." After Ethan said that, Jack turned to look at him. "What do you know? I know more than you can imagine. Yale ordered you to assassinate Mr. Heath to give him an opportunity to impress the Heaths. Now the Heath family is outraged. They are looking into this incident. Do you think Yale would let you go? He would definitely kill you before the Heaths can find you." Ethan saw that Jack was silent, so he added, "You worked with Yale to kill me, right?" Jack had a defeated look on his face. "So what if I did? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Then why didn't you make a move on Liv and the kids? They are the ones closest to me. I wouldn't be on guard against them. Do you think I don't want to?" Jack snarled. That was the reason why he approached Olivia even after he learned her identity. He wasn't just helping her out of kindness. He had hatched a perfect plan. But when he took those two kids in, and they looked at him with those pure and innocent eyes, he couldn't do it. Olivia also treated him like her family. If they went with their real identities, Olivia would be his sister-in-law. As he spent more time with them, his plan for revenge drifted further away from him. He can't bring himself to taint the innocence of the kids, nor could he bring himself to harm Olivia. That was why he could only work with Yale. The deal was he only had to shoot a bullet into Mason's chest. He didn't expect Yale to arrange for other assassins to silence him after he did his part. It took him a lot of effort to get to Olivia's villa. Yale was, without a doubt, looking for him everywhere. Ethan raised his hand. There was a string of prayer beads on his wrist. Kurt got these beads on an island in the Southern Sea. He said he never believed in gods but had to believe in the divine because of a sickly little boy. He was very sincere when he scaled the mountain due to a legend of it being more effective the more sincere he was. He went through great pains to get those prayer beads, but he had a bright smile when he got them. Ethan closed his eyes, and he could see Kurt's smile. Kurt and Jack looked identical, but they were polar opposites when it came to their personalities. One was bright like the sun. The other was as gloomy as the night. Ethan slowly recounted what Kurt said. He said he was so sincere that the gods would definitely have to watch over that sickly boy and let him live a long life. Tears rolled down Jack's face. He was stupid. You're not wrong. Ethan placed his fingers on Jack's forehead and said gently, "You're the person Kurt wanted to protect with all his might. I won't let anything happen to you." Chapter 1105. In the next few days, Olivia became Mason's designated doctor. The Heaths trusted her a lot. That was likely because Ethan was the one who recommended her. Joel and Rufus also sang her praises. The only thing she didn't understand was that Mason would often space out while looking at her eyes. It was like he saw another person in her eyes. "Mr. Heath, it's time to eat." Olivia walked in with a bowl of soup. Mason was handing out work-related orders to someone. He told everyone else to leave the room. He always had a smile on his face when he was with Olivia, like he was a kindly old man from her neighborhood. Tatiana was his second wife. That was why Linus and Crystal were quite young. The story of how Mason came to power was interesting enough to be written into a book. Linus became more respectful to Olivia and treated her like an important guest as he saw his father getting better by the day. "Vanessa, it's all thanks to you that my father is recovering so quickly. You're too kind, Mr. Heath." Olivia was feeding Mason, but she wasn't doing it for nothing. There was something she wanted. She still didn't have the time to visit Jack. She wanted to know what he actually wanted to do. She was brought here by Ethan. If she wanted to kill anyone, she needed to put more effort and time into it so suspicion would fall on him. That was why she still appeared as if she was trying her best to take care of Mason. "Vanessa, Crystal told me that you already have a child." "Yeah." Olivia didn't try to hide it. "Who is the father? Why did you end up in that village?" Mason continued to ask. The Heaths had sent some people to look into Olivia's background, but she seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. No one could find any information on her. Olivia already thought up her story in advance. "Honestly, I don't know either. I washed ashore near the village, and the people there found me. I was already pregnant when they took me in. I forgot a lot of things. I forgot about my family and my husband. But since my child has green eyes, her father must be someone from the western part of the world." "Haven't you recovered your memories?" Olivia shook her head. "Not yet. There wasn't any physical damage to my head, so I must have suffered from some massive shock. That's why I forgot everyone but still held on to the study of medicine. So, I stayed in the village and learned from Madam Wendy while I tried to uncover the truth. But I've been to many places in the past few years and never found anything." "Poor girl. If you ever recall anything, you can tell Linus. He would be able to help you." "Sure. Thanks for your concern, Mr. Heath." Olivia was very courteous and modest. That was why she was very likable. Crystal and Ethan entered the room simultaneously. Olivia was still feeding Mason, so she didn't move away. The Heaths would never talk about anything confidential while she was there anyway. She nodded at Ethan and Crystal as she greeted them. "Mr. Miller, Miss Heath." Crystal turned her head and ignored Olivia. Ethan said with indifference, "Thanks for your hard work. No one would ever guess that they were sleeping together." "Dad, she's very clumsy. Let me feed you," Crystal said as she grabbed the bowl from Olivia. Mason barked at her, "Why are you still so restless despite your age? You should learn from Vanessa. She saved my life. You should show her some respect." Crystal stuck her tongue out and said, "Okay, Dad." "Ethan, come here. I have something to tell you." "What is it, Mr. Heath?" "This near-death experience has revealed to me that Crystal is the one that I'm the most worried about. Ethan, you're someone I've watched grow up and taught you personally. I won't be able to trust anyone else. Your last relationship ended a few years ago, and Crystal only has eyes for you. What do you think?" Chapter 1106. With Olivia gone, Mason had talked to Ethan about this matter several times in the past few years. Crystal had also been asking Mason to talk about this a lot. But Ethan was a pretty important person to Mason, and he had always respected Ethan's wishes. So, this matter was just set aside indefinitely. Crystal had a shy expression on her face. Mason continued, "You were unwilling in the past. I know you loved your ex-wife deeply and wanted to remarry her someday. But she has been gone for 4 years. That's a very long time. My daughter has liked you for so many years. I wouldn't mention it if you had someone you liked, but you've been single for so long. I've always treated you like my son. Why don't we make our bond even stronger?" Ethan had followed Mason for many years and resolved many troublesome matters for him. He knew that Mason really held him in high regard. Once someone got to a position of power, all he would think about was his authority. Mason had gradually forgotten how he got to where he was. As he grew older, he started to fear death and loss because he had too much to lose. Eventually, he started to fear Ethan. He felt like Ethan was far too capable. A sharp blade would be good for cutting down the enemy. But if he couldn't be controlled, he would become very dangerous. That was why Mason helped bring the Kingstons to a position of power. He created a rival for Ethan. The goal was to strip Ethan of some of the power he had and to keep him in check. Otherwise, Ethan would have been promoted long ago. He was urging Ethan to marry his daughter because he would only be able to truly trust Ethan if they were family. Linus said coldly, "My sister has waited so many years for you. As a man, you should be responsible for her, right?" Tatiana played the role of a good cop. "Why are you two so stern? It looks like we're forcing him to marry Crystal. Ethan, you know I like you the most. I've treated you like my son, just as Mason has. You've been well behaved since you were young. I called you over to celebrate the festivities every year because I've never seen you as an outsider. I've always thought how great it would be if you were a Heath." She sighed, then added, "Back then, you were determined to get married. Mason and I were happy for you. But it didn't last. The relationship ended on a sour note. I felt bad for you and that Fordham woman. Neither of you were to blame. You were from different worlds. You couldn't possibly achieve true happiness. You're a smart man. You know what's best for you. You and Crystal are meant for each other. You are similar in social status, and Crystal is head over heels for you. She's been waiting for you all these years. She's even promised to treat your children well. Tell me, what do you think about this? Do you have any reservations?" Olivia finally knew how cunning these people were. They utilized sympathy and intimidation. It was clear they wanted to put Ethan on the spot. If she were right, they would probably try to entrap him morally. Ethan discreetly took his hand out of Tatiana's grasp and said, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Heath. My biggest reservation is that I see Crystal as a sister. I don't have any romantic feelings for her." As soon as he said that, Crystal broke down into tears. Chapter 1107. Crystal rushed toward Ethan with tears in her eyes. She pounded his chest with all her might. "Ethan, why are you so heartless? I gave you my heart, and you brushed me aside. You had a viable reason to reject me in the past. But Olivia has been gone for so many years. Do you really think she would return? Her return is one thing. Me accepting another woman is another." Ethan walked around her and got to the side of the bed. He looked at Mason with determination in his eyes. "Mr. Heath, I am very grateful for the teachings you and Mrs. Heath provided me. The two of you will always be very important people to me. Our relationship will never change even if I don't marry Crystal now or in the future. I will take good care of you both. I appreciate the gesture, but it's like what I said 6 months ago. Crystal is getting to the age where she should start a family, but I'm not worthy of her." Ethan said humbly, "I've already been married, but it's Crystal's first. Also, I have someone else I love. This is unfair to her. It would be better for me to make things clear right now than to have her spend her days in misery in the future. You should find someone more worthy of her than me." Tatiana and Mason exchanged glances. Then, Tatiana said, "Yes, what you say is true, Ethan. But the problem is Crystal is a very strong-willed woman. She's decided that she would marry you and no one else. Do you really want to see her spending the rest of her days alone? Also, both of you share the same blood type, which is very rare. You can help and support each other if either of you gets hurt." Tatiana sighed. Crystal has been raised in a very protected environment. She has never endured any hardships in her life. She would make a huge fuss even if she had a paper cut on her finger. But she was willing to transfer so much blood to you. I couldn't bear to see her in pain, but she insists on doing everything she can for you. Your family has never been perfect, but Mason, Linus, and I have always treated you like one of our own. I think this marriage would be great. I understand what you're worried about. You're looking out for Crystal but can't just keep living in the past. Getting married to Crystal will help you get over it. We should always look to the future, right? Tatiana had a way with words that was on Mason's level. Olivia sat on the side and munched on some pistachios. The situation reminded her of a story she read a couple of days ago. A poor man went to the city with money from his wife to make a name for himself. When he succeeded, he caught the eye of the princess and was pressured into marrying her. His wife waited for him at home for him to bring her to the city, but all that came was a letter divorcing her. A similar situation was unfolding before her very eyes. It was not something she could see every day. As everyone was immersed in the conversation, a sudden crunching sound could be heard. Olivia accidentally let out a sound while munching on the pistachios. Everyone turned their gaze toward her, and she froze. She didn't know what to do with the pistachio in her mouth. She waved her hand awkwardly and said, "Well, why don't you guys carry on?" Crystal finally realized there was an outsider here. "Why are you here? Who said you could stay here? Get out." Olivia put down the pistachios. She knew she should have munched on something that wouldn't make a noise. She would be missing out on the drama. Then I won't be a nuisance anymore. Olivia shrugged in resignation. It was a pity. The drama was so interesting, but she would never get to witness it anymore. Chapter 1108. Mason cut Crystal off coldly. "Crystal, I told you to show Vanessa some respect." Crystal had nowhere to vent the frustration of being rejected by Ethan. Olivia was the only outsider in the room. Naturally, she unloaded all her anger on her. Mason had always been gentle and loving toward her. So, she didn't like his attitude toward her at the moment. "Dad, why are you also like this? I didn't say anything wrong. We were discussing something here as a family. Who does she think she is, eavesdropping on us? She's so rude. Crystal, it seems like I've been too easy on you and spoiled you rotten. Is this how you should act?" Mason's voice grew even colder. "It's all your fault." Crystal glared at Olivia. Olivia set the pistachios in her hand down and patted her hands clean. Yeah, it's all my fault. I'll just disappear then." Olivia went up to Mason and said, "Mr. Heath, I'm relieved to see your recovery has been coming along well. You're out of critical condition now. You only need to have the other doctors nurse you back to health. There's no need for me to stay any longer." Olivia had only said she would consider staying, but Crystal helped her make up her mind. The Heaths' expressions changed when she said she was leaving. Tatiana left Ethan alone and rushed to Olivia. "Please don't take Crystal's words to heart. Don't say you want to leave just because of that. Mom, just let her leave. She's just a doctor. We can get new ones anytime. Mr. Tucker and the others are fine, too." For some reason, Crystal hated Olivia as soon as she saw her in the village. The fact that Willow tried to kill her only made matters worse. Her instincts told her to stay as far away from Olivia as possible. Linus slapped her without another word. This time, he slapped her harder than when he slapped her before the operating room. There was blood on the corner of Crystal's lips. "I've warned you to be more polite to our family's benefactor. Did you already forget what I said? Linus, you slapped me for this bitch again. What's so great about her? All she did was perform a surgery. But you all are treating her like some big shot." She was slapped again, this time by Ethan instead of Linus. Everyone was shocked to see Ethan hit her. His slap wasn't just an attack on Crystal but also on the pride of the Heath family. A hint of anger flashed in Mason's eyes when he did that. Ethan knew the consequences of his actions, but he stood straight with a resolute gaze. "Vanessa is my guest. I've told you to show her some respect repeatedly, but you never did. This is the only thing I can do to make you remember." With a serious expression, Ethan said, "Mr. and Mrs. Heath, I am very sorry. I promised Vanessa I would protect her before I brought her here. But Crystal would insult her every time they met. Vanessa didn't do anything wrong. She doesn't deserve to be treated like this." Olivia pursed her lips. She knew she couldn't fool around anymore. Ethan was basically dancing with the devil here. She could feel her skin crawl. Mason looked into his eyes for a few seconds. Then, he smiled. "You did good. I wanted to teach her a lesson, too. She's been disrespectful and rude. As her father, I'm the one who should be apologizing." Then, Olivia could feel her hair stand on end. There was bloodlust in Mason's eyes. Chapter 1109. Mr. Mason, there's no need to discipline Miss Heath. I'm not offended at all. Please don't let my presence affect the harmony of your family. I'll leave now, Ethan quickly said. I'll go with you. As soon as the door closed, Crystal burst into tears. Mom and Dad, Linus slapped me. Even Ethan slapped me. It's all because of that woman. I don't want her here anymore. Shut up. Mason's voice was low but intimidating. He gazed at Tatiana and said, "This is the child you raised." It's embarrassing. Tatiana hesitated for a while, then replied weakly, "It's my fault." But Mason, Ethan has become very cocky. Not only did he reject the marriage, but he also hit Crystal in front of us. Mason grunted. He did it intentionally. He wanted to show us that he would dare to hit her before us. If she gets married to him, he would probably do worse. He wouldn't dare. I'll kill him, Linus said coldly. That was just how people were. Families can scold or even hit one of their own, but an outsider is not allowed to do the same. Linus, Crystal murmured while caressing her face. Linus grunted. It's all your fault. Are you happy now that you drove her away? I'm sure we can easily find a doctor to replace her. Olivia followed Ethan to the car. As soon as the doors were closed, Ethan's demeanor changed. He hugged Olivia. Liv, I've missed you for the past few days. I've been seeing you but can't even talk to you. Olivia pushed his head away with her finger. Are you crazy? Do you know who she is? She's basically a princess, and you struck her before the king. Do you have a death wish? Do you want to be annihilated? Ethan hugged her head and nestled against her shoulder. Liv, I got back at her for slapping you. Who asked you to do that? You did something outrageous. Ethan chuckled. I did it on purpose. This way, they won't force me to marry her anymore. Olivia flipped over and sat on his lap. She wrapped her arms around his neck and said, You don't want to be the son-in-law to the Heaths. They were clearly trying to give you more power. Once you marry Crystal, you will be one of them. Then, they will be able to let their guard down against you. Ethan ran his fingers over her brows. But I only have eyes for you. Marrying someone from a powerful family isn't as good as being with you. Olivia felt like she was about to lose herself in his smile. But then, he said, Let me kiss you. I've missed you so much. She was at a loss for words. Brent was trying his best to stifle his laughs. If Kelvin were here, he would already be laughing. Olivia pushed him and said, Stop fooling around. We were talking about something serious. You rejected the Heaths. That means you're letting go of the power that they would have given you. Aren't you afraid that they might support Yale instead? Mr. Heath helped Yale up to where he is in order to keep me in check. But do you think it's so easy to keep me down? Ethan smiled mysteriously. I've been by his side for so many years. Naturally, I know how he operates. I've already prepared contingencies for when that day comes. Olivia blinked in surprise. Ethan leaned in next to her ear and whispered, You don't have to think about a thing. Leave it all to me. I told you I'll never let you down again. Chapter 1110. Olivia had wanted to go home, but Ethan dragged her off to somewhere secluded. They even changed cars midway. Olivia looked at him in confusion. What surprises do you have in store? You'll find out when we get there. Ethan held her hand as they entered the manor. She quickly noticed that Colin was there. She was immediately on guard. She shook free of Ethan's hand. What did you do to Jack? Ethan felt pained when he saw her guarded expression. Why don't you trust me? I knew I couldn't hide anything from you. Olivia was sure he noticed something that night. He probably sent people to take Jack as soon as she was gone. He was a very cunning man, after all. Ethan held her hand again. I know I did a lot of things in the past to lose your trust. I deserve this. But I said I will never hurt you again. Does he look like I did anything to him? Olivia heard that and started observing Colin. She even pulled his hand to check if there were chips planted. Olivia, he didn't lay a hand on me this time. Colin defended Ethan for once. What about Jack? He's fine, too. He's resting in his room. Olivia went to find Jack and noticed that his complexion looked better than before. Ethan actually got Chris to come and take care of Jack. Olivia didn't know about the history between Jack and Ethan. She was just relieved to see he was fine. "How are you doing, Jack? I can get out of bed by myself now. Don't worry, I'm doing fine. How did he find you?" Jack didn't tell her about what went on between them. He only glossed over the encounter. He said it wasn't safe there. "So, he brought us here." Ethan walked into the room and explained. "Yale was looking for him everywhere. He would be dead if he stayed outside. You were at the hospital for the past few days, where people might hear, so I didn't tell you." Olivia blushed. "I'm sorry I wronged you. Liv, they are people that have helped you a lot. I would never hurt them." Ethan smiled. "It's getting late. I've asked Sonia to cook. We're all family here. Let's all eat together. You even brought Sonia here. Sonia is a good cook. He's a patient. He needs proper nutrition and can't just eat takeout every day." When he said that, Ethan shot Colin a glance. Colin suddenly looked uneasy. "I'm a bad cook. I don't want to poison him with my cooking. I might as well order takeout." All of them sat at the table. Even Brent and Kelvin were there. It was a curious experience for all of them to be sitting at the same table. Colin didn't touch his cutleries. Ethan looked at him and said, "Are you afraid that I might poison you?" Ethan was a vengeful man. Colin set him up at the village. Why would Ethan ever forgive him? "Don't worry, even if I want to kill you, I won't do it while Liv is here." "Olivia, you heard him. If I ever end up dead, he would definitely be the culprit." Kelvin didn't like how Colin was acting like a playful child. He said gloomily, "I might be the one to do it, too. I can slice you up with my knife." Olivia knew they didn't really mean what they said. She picked up some salad and said, "All right, stop fooling around. Let's eat." Both Ethan and Olivia put some food on Jack's plate at the same time. They looked at each other. Olivia asked, "What's wrong with you today?" She didn't know he was trying to make it up to Jack because he felt guilt toward Kurt.